Hello, dear learners. Welcome back to our channel, where English learning becomes an unforgettable adventure. Today, we begin the incredible life story of one of the greatest leaders in history, Nelson Mandela. This is not just a story, it's a journey of hope, courage, and determination. Listening to this story will help you improve your English vocabulary, pronunciation, and listening skills. But more than that, it will inspire you to dream big and never give up, no matter how hard life gets. So, get ready for the most powerful and most motivational story you've ever heard. Let's start the journey of Nelson Mandela, a man who changed the world. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in a small, quiet village called Mvezo in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. His birth name was Rolihlahla Mandela, which, in the Xhosa language, means pulling the branch of a tree. Some people also say it means troublemaker, a name that would later reflect his boldness in challenging injustice. He was born into the Thembu royal family, a tribe known for its rich history and culture. His father, Gadla Henry Mfakanyiswa, was a respected chief and advisor to the Thembu king. Although Mandela's family was not wealthy, they were deeply respected in the community. His mother, Nosekeni Fanny, was a devout Christian who taught him the importance of kindness, humility, and faith. Mandela's childhood was simple but filled with joy. He lived in a hut made of mud and straw, surrounded by open fields and rolling hills. There was no electricity, no running water, and no modern luxuries, but Mandela felt free and happy. As a young boy, he loved to run barefoot in the fields, herd cattle, and swim in the streams. He played traditional Xhosa games with his friends and listened to elders tell stories around the fire at night. These stories, often about brave warriors and leaders, ignited a spark in young Mandela's heart. One day his father told him, "A real leader is not someone who wants power for himself, but someone who serves his people." These words stayed with Mandela throughout his life. When Mandela was only 9 years old, tragedy struck. His father fell ill and passed away. This was a devastating loss for the young boy, but it also marked a turning point in his life. After his father's death, Mandela's mother took him to live with Chief Jongintaba Dalindyebo, a royal leader of the Thembu people. Chief Jongintaba welcomed Mandela into his home as if he were his own son. For the first time, Mandela saw a life beyond his small village. He lived in the chief's palace, where he observed meetings and learned about leadership, tradition, and responsibility. Mandela began attending a local Methodist school at the age of 7. It was here that his teacher, Miss Madingane, gave him the name Nelson, as was the custom for African children to be given English names in schools. Although Mandela did not understand why he needed a new name, he accepted it and focused on his studies. He quickly became a diligent student, curious about everything he learned. He loved English literature, geography, and history, especially stories of African heroes who fought against colonial rule. Mandela often said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." This belief drove him to study harder and dream bigger. As Mandela grew older, he became more aware of the inequalities around him. South Africa was ruled by the system of apartheid, which kept black and white people separated in every part of life. Black people were not allowed to vote, own land, or live in the same neighborhoods as white people. Mandela could see the unfairness everywhere. At the age of 16, Mandela participated in a traditional Xhosa ceremony where boys became men. During the ceremony, elders spoke about the responsibilities of manhood, but they also shared their sadness about the state of their people under apartheid. Mandela felt a deep sense of duty to fight for justice and equality. When Mandela was 19 years old, Chief Jongintaba arranged a marriage for him. But Mandela had other dreams. He wanted to continue his education and make his own choices. So he made a bold decision. He ran away to the bustling city of Johannesburg. In Johannesburg, Mandela saw a completely different world. The city was vibrant but full of challenges. Black people worked hard for very little pay and lived in poor conditions, while white people enjoyed all the wealth and privilege. Mandela worked as a night watchman at a gold mine while continuing his education. He lived in a small, crowded room and often went hungry. But he never gave up. He believed that education would open doors to a better future. Mandela eventually enrolled at the University of Witwatersrand, where he studied law. He was one of the few black students in the university and faced discrimination, but this only made him stronger. During this time, Mandela joined the African National Congress, a political organization fighting for the rights of black South Africans. He attended secret meetings, where he listened to passionate speeches and shared his ideas for a fairer South Africa. Mandela dreamed of a South Africa where everyone, regardless of their race, could live together in peace and equality. He wanted to create a country where children could play together without fear, where families could build their futures, and where justice would prevail. This dream became the driving force of his life, but the road ahead was filled with challenges, sacrifices, and pain. When Mandela arrived in Johannesburg, he was just a young man full of dreams. The city was alive with energy, but it was also full of challenges. Black people were treated as second-class citizens and forced to live in poor neighborhoods called townships. Mandela rented a small room in Alexandra, one of the poorest townships, and worked as a clerk in a law firm. The job was demanding, but it gave him a chance to learn about the legal system and how it was used to oppress black South Africans. He spent his evenings studying by candlelight, determined to finish his law degree. Mandela's hunger for knowledge was unstoppable. He often said, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way. But I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb." The ANC had existed for many years, but Mandela and a group of young activists believed it needed a fresh approach. They formed the ANC Youth League, which focused on mobilizing young people to fight against apartheid. Mandela's speeches were powerful and passionate. He spoke about justice, equality, and the need for action. People admired his courage and vision. One of his most famous lines was, "It always seems impossible until it's done." While working with the ANC, Mandela met a beautiful and intelligent woman named Evelyn Ntoko Mays. Evelyn was a nurse, and she shared Mandela's dream of a better South Africa. They got married in 1944 and started a family. Mandela was a loving husband and father, but his commitment to the struggle often kept him away from home. Mandela's personal life was not easy. He had to balance his responsibilities as a father with his role as a leader. He once said, "There is no passion to be found in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." In 1948, the South African government introduced new apartheid laws, making life even harder for black people. These laws dictated where black people could live, work, and even whom they could marry. Mandela and his colleagues in the ANC knew they had to act. Mandela helped organize peaceful protests, strikes, and marches. He believed in nonviolent resistance, inspired by the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. Thousands of people joined the movement, risking their jobs, homes, and even their lives. But the government responded with violence. Protesters were beaten, arrested, and sometimes killed. Mandela himself was arrested multiple times, but he refused to give up. He said, "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is inspiring others to move beyond it." Despite the challenges, Mandela achieved one of his biggest dreams. He became a lawyer. In 1952, he and his friend Oliver Tambo opened the first black law firm in South Africa, Mandela and Tambo Attorneys. The firm provided free or low-cost legal help to black South Africans who were victims of apartheid. Mandela spent his days in courtrooms defending people who had been unfairly treated. At night, he worked with the ANC to plan the next steps in their fight for freedom. In 1960, a tragic event changed the course of Mandela's life. During a peaceful protest in the town of Sharpeville, police opened fire on the crowd, killing 69 people and injuring hundreds more. This massacre shocked the world and made Mandela realize that peaceful protests alone might not be enough. The government banned the ANC, forcing Mandela and other leaders to go underground. They formed a secret armed group called Umkhonto we Sizwe, which means Spear of the Nation. Mandela said their goal was not to harm people but to sabotage government structures that upheld apartheid. Nelson Mandela became a wanted man. He traveled across South Africa in disguise, organizing protests and recruiting people for the struggle. He also traveled to other countries to gain support for the fight against apartheid. During this time, Mandela became known as the Black Pimpernel because he was so good at evading capture. But his life was full of danger. He couldn't see his family, and he knew that every day could be his last as a free man. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and charged with sabotage, treason, and attempting to overthrow the government. He used his trial as a platform to speak out against apartheid. In his famous speech, he said, "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment and sent to Robben Island, a bleak prison off the coast of Cape Town. Life in prison was harsh. Mandela was forced to do hard labor in a limestone quarry. He lived in a tiny cell with no bed and only a thin mat on the floor. The guards were cruel, and Mandela was allowed only one visitor and one letter every 6 months. But Mandela refused to be broken. He used his time in prison to study, reflect, and plan. He even learned the Afrikaans language to understand his enemies better. He also taught younger prisoners about leadership and the importance of staying hopeful. Mandela said, "I am fundamentally an optimist. Whether that comes from nature or nurture, I cannot say. Part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward." As the years passed, Mandela became a symbol of hope for millions of people around the world. Protests against apartheid grew stronger, both inside and outside South Africa. World leaders and organizations called for Mandela's release, but the South African government refused. When Mandela was imprisoned, many thought his fight was over. But the truth was, his imprisonment became the spark that ignited a global movement. Mandela spent 27 long years in prison, most of them on Robben Island. Every day was a test of his patience and willpower. The guards tried to humiliate him, but Mandela remained dignified. The work was grueling, but he kept his spirit strong. He once said, "I realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." During those years, Mandela became more than a prisoner. He became a symbol of the fight against injustice. Around the world, people chanted, "Free Nelson Mandela." His name was whispered in schools, sung in protests, and carried on banners. While Mandela was in prison, South Africa became a nation under siege. The apartheid government faced increasing protests, strikes, and international sanctions. Countries refused to trade with South Africa. Famous musicians like Stevie Wonder and Bob Marley dedicated songs to Mandela. Even in prison, Mandela's leadership was felt. He secretly communicated with other ANC leaders and even began negotiations with the apartheid government. Mandela understood something crucial. To truly win, South Africa needed peace, not revenge. On February 11, 1990, the world watched as Nelson Mandela walked out of prison. He was 71 years old, his hair gray but his spirit unbroken. His first words were, "I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people." Today, the time for healing of wounds has come. The time to build is upon us. The streets erupted in celebration. People danced, cried, and cheered. Mandela's release was not just his freedom. It was the first step toward a free South Africa. After his release, Mandela faced a tough question. How could South Africa heal after so much pain? Many people wanted revenge, but Mandela preached forgiveness. He met with the very people who had oppressed him and worked with them to build a new nation. He said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." Mandela became the leader of the ANC and began working toward South Africa's first democratic election. His goal was simple but powerful: a South Africa where everyone, black, white, Indian, colored, had equal rights. In 1994, history was made. For the first time, all South Africans, regardless of race, could vote. People stood in long lines, some for hours, to cast their votes. On April 27, 1994, Nelson Mandela was elected the first black president of South Africa. His inauguration was a moment of pure hope. Leaders from around the world attended. Mandela said in his speech, "Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another." South Africa had a new beginning, and Mandela was at the heart of it. As president, Mandela focused on uniting the country. One of his most famous acts was supporting South Africa's rugby team, the Springboks, during the 1995 Rugby World Cup. Rugby was traditionally seen as a white man's sport, but Mandela wore the Springbok jersey and stood alongside the team, showing that unity was possible. This act of reconciliation was immortalized in the movie Invictus. The title came from a poem Mandela loved, which ends with the lines, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." After serving one term as president, Mandela stepped down in 1999, proving that true leaders know when to let go of power. He spent his later years advocating for peace, education, and the fight against poverty and HIV, AIDS. Mandela traveled the world, meeting leaders, inspiring youth, and reminding everyone of the power of forgiveness and determination. On December 5, 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away at the age of 95. The world mourned the loss of a giant. Millions of people attended his memorial, including presidents, celebrities, and ordinary citizens whose lives he had touched. Mandela's legacy is not just in South Africa, but in every corner of the globe. He taught us that no matter how dark the road, no matter how high the mountain, hope and perseverance can change the world. Nelson Mandela's life is proof that greatness is not something you are born with. It's something you achieve through hard work, sacrifice, and unwavering belief in your dreams. His story reminds us, never give up, even in the hardest times. Forgiveness is stronger than hate. One person can make a difference. Nelson Mandela's life is a testament to the power of determination, patience, and forgiveness. He spent 27 years in prison for a cause he believed in, and when he was released, he could have chosen revenge or anger. But instead, he chose peace. He showed the world that even in the darkest moments, we can still choose the light of hope and love. Mandela's journey was not easy. There were many times when he could have given up, many times when life seemed impossible. But he kept moving forward. He knew that change wasn't easy, but he believed that small steps could make a big difference. He showed us that we don't have to be perfect, but we must never stop trying. In every challenge he faced, whether it was in the streets of South Africa or in the cold cells of prison, Mandela always remembered his dream of a free, equal, and peaceful world. And even though his fight was long, it wasn't just about him. He fought for the future of his children, his grandchildren, and for the generations to come. Mandela said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." This shows us that failure is not the end of the road. Every time we fall, we can rise again. Every mistake is a chance to learn, to grow, and to become stronger. No matter how many times life knocks us down, we can always stand up and keep going. His life teaches us that no matter where we come from or what we face, we all have the power to make a difference. We can be leaders, even in the smallest ways. It doesn't matter if we're not famous or powerful like Nelson Mandela. Every kind word, every act of kindness, every moment we stand up for what's right. These things matter. Mandela's story is a story for everyone. It shows that no matter how hard life gets, we have the strength to keep moving forward. You have the power to overcome any obstacle. You are stronger than you think. So remember Nelson Mandela when you feel like giving up. Think about the hardships he faced, the struggles he endured, but most importantly, think about how he kept going. He didn't let anything stop him, and neither should you. Your dreams are worth fighting for, and you have everything inside you to achieve them. Mandela's journey wasn't just about changing South Africa, it was about changing the world. And he did. He inspired millions, and his message will continue to inspire for generations to come. So take his story to heart. Never forget that with hope, love, and determination, you can make the world a better place. In Mandela's words, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." This is where we end the story of Nelson Mandela, but his legacy lives on in all of us. Remember, you have the power to overcome any challenge, no matter how impossible it seems. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you feel inspired, share Mandela's story with others. Together, we can carry forward his message of hope, unity, and freedom. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this.
Thank you so much for watching Inspiring English. If this video inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and send it to someone who needs a little English motivation today. And of course, hit the bell icon so you never miss the next lesson that can change your English, and maybe even your life.